All right, folks, welcome. Good evening. We have some very exciting speakers this evening, so it's a great honor and privilege to have our dear friend Tim Kilduff join us, and quite honored to have our honored guest speaker, Meb Keflezighi, join us today from Tampa, Florida. So very excited about that. So let me say a few words quickly about Meb. Meb is the America's premier marathoner, as I've been reading about that. So it's such a great privilege to have Meb. As you all know, Meb ran a passionate and spirited marathon after the tragic bombing of 2013. So when we were all in our Boston strong feeling of being able to show and what we can do this and kind of come back from that terrible event, Meb came back in 2014 and won the Boston Marathon. And so many accolades go along with him, and I'm sure Tim will say a few words, but it's an honor to have Meb here because, as you all know, we sponsor with the Consul General's Office the Golden Wreaths. So Meb is in a group of very few people that has actually worn or at least been honored to have one of those wreaths on his head. So it's an amazing experience to have that, and looking forward to hearing from Meb and so forth. But let me first introduce Tim Kilduff, who is not only a dear friend, not only our 2018 Philhellene winner, but he is also, as you all know, the founder and president of the 26.2 Foundation. He is also was the race director of the Boston Marathon from 1983 and 1984. And he's involved in a variety of different marathon efforts, wellness, economic development initiatives, and he's just Mr. Marathon, not only in the Boston area, but throughout the country and abroad. He is well respected in Marathon Greece. He's been out there several times, and I'm just really pleased to have Tim in our circle. We call him a friend, we call him a dear colleague, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce Tim Kilduff, who will say a few words and make a formal introduction of Meb. Just for a quick thing, folks, as we get closer to the question and answers period, I just ask that you use the chat function in Zoom, and then Kostas Stylianos will be our meeting moderator going from there. So without further ado, welcome all. Monday is Patriots Day, so this was kind of pointed that we wanted to have this month's meeting reflect the marathon. As we all know, it's going to be postponed until October, I believe. And without further ado, Tim Kilduff, welcome. The floor is yours.
Costa, thank you very much. I think you all pretty much understand my connection, attachment, and importance to the Alpha Omega Council. So it's a privilege to be able to spend a few minutes with you. I wish it was in person. I was reminded today that under normal circumstances, the Thursday before the marathon, we would be somewhere helping the Consul General transfer the wreaths to the BAA. So the timing is perfect, Costa. I wanted to take just a couple of minutes to give you a little, I think, exciting news. I hope you'll agree. For many years, there are a number of us who have had a vision to build an international marathon center in first Massachusetts and more particularly Hopkinton. The idea, and all of you have helped really keep this spark alive because it's a privilege and always helpful to be connected to people like yourselves who love and respect your heritage. And this International Marathon Center will have essentially three components. One, a Hall of Fame, obviously, two, a museum, and three, a very, very substantial education component. And I can tell you, as we begin now to build a visitor experience, Greece will touch every part of that International Marathon Center. It goes beyond the sport of marathoning to other endurance sports. And then you all know the importance of the Battle of Marathon and the development of democracy. That will become a major educational piece for this institution. And so we've been in negotiations with the town for a substantial period of time. And in about 2 weeks, and we'll make sure you all get the notice, we will announce the fact that a lease, a 99-year lease, has been signed with the town of Hopkinton. The location of the International Marathon Center will be about a half a mile from the start of the race, directly on the Boston Marathon course. We can't possibly come up with a better location for that. So as soon as we get that word, Costa, we'll get it to you, and I hope you'll pass it out to the membership. So this sport, this thing we call the marathon, is of course about endurance running, but to me, the more important part is to be able to pull away from the fact that it's 26.2 miles and begin to dig deep into the personalities and the kind of people that make this sport global in nature. The BAA it deserves a tremendous amount of credit. And under the leadership of Tom Grote, the president and CEO, he has been able to take the organization and the race in particular from that bombing straight through to now getting through COVID, and also now looking at the 125th Boston Marathon, which will be run in October. He's not the kind of guy that goes out and toots his own horn, but he deserves the accolades that I'm sure we all want to send to him. He's been a steady hand and the kind of guy that stays on point and protects with great veracity the BAA, its logo and its traditions. And one of the parts of the traditions are some historic races. You're all familiar with the 200th anniversary of Greek independence. We know that the 125th Boston Marathon is going to be run in the fall, but it's also the 75th anniversary of Stylianos Kyriakides' Boston Marathon victory. One of the striking things about Meb's victory was it in many ways mirrors Kyriakides. Kyriakides was a marathon champion, he was a patriot, and he was a humanitarian. And those three words, in my opinion, describe Meb Keflezighi. Let me give you a couple of quick stats. And Meb will talk about his connection and his family's connection to Athens and Greece in his comments. But this is a guy that has won both the New York, Boston marathons and has an Olympic medal, marathon medal. There are very few Boston Marathon champions that can boast having an Olympic medal. I think you can probably count those people on one hand. Meb has 9 siblings, but in his transition from his home country to citizenship in the United States, those 9 siblings all went to schools like Cal Berkeley, Stanford, UCLA, San Diego State. They're lawyers, doctors, MBAs, educators, and engineers. Meb's family are truly represent the American dream. His exploits on the track and on the roads are some of the most notable in marathon history. But to me, the most valuable characteristics of Meb are the fact that he's willing to give back. Yeah, he has a great sense of perseverance. He understands the importance of discipline, but he's gracious. He spends time with people. Spending time with us tonight is an example of that. He has a compelling story, and it really is with a great deal of personal privilege and pleasure that I'm able to introduce New York Marathon, Boston Marathon, Olympic medalist, marathon champion, patriot, and humanitarian, Meb Keflezighi.
Thank you, Tim. It's a great honor to be with you. Thanks to Alpha Omega Consulate for having me, and the BAA for the great work that you guys have done for many, many years. And to happy 200th independence to Greek, and 75-year anniversary for Stylianos Kyriakides, and the 125th of the Boston Marathon running. We learn from each other, and we have to take a journey to get to wherever our success might be. For me, started from humble beginning of Eritrea, where there was a war for independence against Ethiopia that lasted for 31 years. And my dad was wanted by the Ethiopian soldiers, so he was gonna get killed or prison. So my mom had to have the courage to tell him, why don't you take to a safe land if you can? Otherwise, if you're killed, you're not good to us, or if you're prison, you're not gonna be any good. So he didn't wanna take a leave, but my mom kind of talked to him into it. And his father-in-law gave him the blessing, and he has to walk over 225 miles to Sudan. So from Eritrea to Sudan, in the wilderness where there's hyenas, scorpions, snakes, lions, and all that sort. And he would have to sleep the night on the trees, because if he is in the wilderness on the ground, a wild animal will have him for dinner. And at the same time, it's not paved road, it trails in the wilderness. And he has to mend in from one village to the other village and to do whatnot. But it took him 7 days, which is an average of 31 miles a day, without not having the marathon support like water, fluid, or electrolytes. But he made it. And once he made it to Sudan, he got odd jobs. And then after about a year, he made it to Italy. And the reason he made it to Italy was his boss, Dr. Brindisi, asked him one day why he worked so hard. And my dad said, well, I got 6 kids and a wife to save. And, bear in mind, he has not seen one of the kids yet because my mom was expecting, but they had trust on each other to say, if it's a girl, call her Amina. If it's a boy, call him Be'imnet. And luckily, it was a boy, call him Be'imnet. But because that trust, one day, once he makes the safe land, it's a commitment that will look after for us. So he could have been at peace in Italy and whatnot, but through the generosity of Dr. Brichu, he says, how much money do you need? He says, my dad begged him, says, can I get 10 million lira? In 1986, excuse me, that 10 million lira was about $6,000 US. And Dr. Brichu told him, is that to save the whole family or just one person? He said, well, the money that I have saved would save the whole family. So my dad got excited. My Dr. Brichu told him, come back on Wednesday. And when he came back, he gave him 10 million lira cash. And he says, make sure you use it for your family. And guess what? My dad just did that. And I remember he did his flights arrangements from Ethiopia to Eritrea. And then, people working together to be the best they can be. And we flew our first flight, from Asmara to Addis Ababa, I'm pretty sure. And then from Addis Ababa to Athens, Greece. And, and I remember getting off the plane, excited to see my dad. I haven't seen him for 5 years. And first time, I'm a runner now, but the second time running was away from a car when I was in the village going to the capital. And the second time was at the Athens airport, just running to my dad, give him a hug. He goes, Mer Howie, which is my youngest brother, who is 4 years younger. I said, no, it's Mabratom or Meb. And he just started crying. The reason being, he had not seen his kids for 5 years. And he expected me to be taller, bigger, muscular, and whatnot. I was 10-year-old, obviously. And he said, my kids, he went into tears because he was expecting us to be taller and bigger and whatnot. And my mom we don't know the language. It says, just don't worry about their heights or their size. Just make sure all 6 of them are here, because for her, it's been a big burden to kind of make sure she fed us. It's not like go to the grocery store and get food. It's a village without electricity, without running water, where you have to go 2 to 3 miles to get wood so you can have fire for your meals, or you have to go 2 to 3 miles to get water from the well, so to drink. So those things were hard on her and us. But in Athens, Greece, I remember I was relieved in many ways because I saw my father, and I actually went to Italy and lived in Italy for another a year and a half. We were in Athens for about a week, and then we went to Italy. And, my parents were happy to have peace and harmony, but they saw the unique opportunities for their children was. We always want to have a better future for our kids. And they said, let's go to the United States for better educational opportunities and to step up the ladder. And I mean, I had made good connect with Italy, and I don't want to leave, to be honest, because my teacher she always embraced me to take me on the weekends because I was at a boarding school, and my teammate, also my classmate, would come and, you know, take me to horse watching and things like that. But when we came on October 21st, 1987, our parents were relieved to be in the United States and say, this is the opportunity that we didn't have, your cousins don't have, your uncles don't have, so don't waste it. And, you know, you got to just work hard, new language, new barriers, new food, and all those things. But when you are committed, like my father was to us, he woke us up at 4:30 in the morning to learn English before we went 7:30 o'clock class. You know, we would flip with the dictionary one word at a time and try to learn it, and as much as we can. And I was 12 when we came to the United States, and they decided to put me in 6th grade so I could have middle school age to be able to, instead of 7th grade, to use that transition year. But our oldest brother, Futsum, was placed in, imagine yourself going to 9th grade in a different country without knowing the language. But he worked so hard that at the end of the year, they gave him the most outstanding student at Roosevelt Junior High. If you're ever in San Diego, there's a school next to the zoo. And that's where we started. And my parents said, you know, it was a trophy about this big. And it said, most outstanding student at Roosevelt Junior High, Meb Keflezighi. And they placed that on the top of the TV. Hard work does pay off. Make sure you respect your teachers. Make sure you learn from other people, but do things the right way. And that was the most prominent trophy that was placed in our house. And now you see the little wreath that came from Greece on back of top of my head or behind me. But until I won the silver medal, which I'm going to share with you now, the silver medal here that I won in Athens, you can see the old stadium there. And I always been looking for Greek people to help me translate these words, because to me, it's all Greek. And until I won this medal in 2004, the most trophy was my brother Futsum's. But until this other medal took over, I'm getting an award. But it always was my dream to represent the United States. And I'll tell you a story before I won this medal. And you know, my dad, we were sitting in Australia. I was at 10K. You know, parents want the best thing for their kids. And I was going to go to the race, and I was sick. I had the flu that was going around the village. And my dad goes, today you're going to win, son. You're going to win the medal for your country. And I'm like, Dad, I don't think I could win today. I'm sick, and I have not broken 28 minutes for 10K yet. So therefore, I don't know if I could do it. He's like, don't think pessimistic. You got to be positive. You got to think about it. I'm like, Dad, I hope to win a medal for our country in the next time around. But tonight, I hope I don't get lapped, because those guys like Haile Gebrselassie from Ethiopia or Paul Turga from Kenya, they were running the 26:30, a minute and a half ahead of me. So I was just barely making it through. Hopefully I won't get lapped. But I finished 12th. And before I left the stadium in Sydney, Australia, I said, the next time I go to the Olympics, Athens, I hope to represent our country and win a medal for our country. Honestly, when I made that goal, I didn't know it was going to be in the 10K. This was my thought was, because I haven't done a marathon yet. But you know, in Athens, I did my first marathon in 2002. And then in 2004, I had the great honor to represent our country in the marathon. I was runner up to Culpeper at the Olympic trials, but in the trials in the 10K, I was able to win the trials, and I had the American record. So the chances of doing well for me was in the 10K, especially in Athens. You get 2 weeks vacation. You don't want to deal with the heat and humidity and the hills. But the marathon is 26.2 miles, even though I was 4 or 5 minutes before Paul Turgot, according to my time. I took interest in the history. I'm a student of the sport because the Greek is where the Olympics started. And to be in Athens and to run from marathon to Athens, the original course of the marathon, how the name marathon got, I couldn't pass on. And sometimes Coach Larson and I would think about doing the marathon one night and think about doing the 10K. And no American has medaled since 76 in the marathon. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to be in Athens, Greece, and I need to do the marathon, even though, you know, there's the last event of the Olympic, the closing ceremony where you can do the 10K, get 2 weeks vacation, watch other competitors. But the will of the heart and the mind, and for me, to be able to represent our country at the Olympics. It was the thrill of a lifetime. I was the 39th fastest guy going into the race, but ranking is ranking. You gotta perform on that day. So I had confidence in my training and my team and my preparation. And it's gonna be hot, hilly, and humid. So we knew how to, I wore the cooling vest to be able to, cool the body temperature a little bit down and to know the course. When I drove the course from Marathon to Athens, I said, training the mountain of California, I said, it wasn't that bad. And coach asked me, how fast do you think you could run on this course? And I said, I think I could run 2:12. I said, well, if you run 2:12, you're going to medal. And, going through the course, that, started really slow, work your way up into the race. And I just challenged myself. About 15K into the race, I give Coach Larson a thumbs up and, catching people. I'll start from the back, catching people. And it was just wonderful opportunities to be there, because you think about the soldiers, that history that has got in your head through going through those journey. And I remember with about 5K left or so, or 6 miles left, I say, I want a medal. There's 6 of us. I just got to be 3 people. My goal was to win a medal for our country. And then with 5K to go, Stefano Boldini, from Italy, made a big move, and he had experience. This was only my 4th marathon ever. So for me, I'm thinking, I don't want to crash like I did my first marathon, because my first marathon was just, you hit the wall and your mind says go, your body says no way. So I just kept pushing and pushing, and I was able to, get a 2nd place at the point. And then with 1 mile to go, I threw my hat away on the streets of Athens. I said, I'm going to go for Stefano Boldini. But it was a flashback for me going to the last, especially the last mile, because it was like a movie. How unique is this? I met my dad for the first time here after 5-year separation. Now I'm representing our country, the United States, and winning a medal. I don't care what color it was, but to be able to do the all stadium and be able to just see our flag risen, you got to pinch yourself how all connected to me. And my family has a blessing, to be able to go through the journey of Athens and to Italy and to the United States. So when I run, I don't only just represent myself, but our country, but also the sport worldwide, because it means a lot for the people that help me have a journey partake of the success that I have. So it takes a village to raise a child, and many people have helped me be the man that I am. I feel very fortunate. When I went back to Athens another time, I'll tell you a story that I have also here. This big book here, you guys, I'm pretty sure, are very familiar. The 42 kilometers and 195 meters. So there's pictures of this was, I believe, the 2010 anniversary of the Athens Marathon. How, just memories of life when it's a history, and to be able to be associated the BAA or the Boston Marathon with Athens and the people is just amazing, especially for me to be able to, conclude it here and do Q&A, but to have the laurel wreath that brought from Greece, and it means a lot, because life is a full circle, and to be able to be the first in honor of the 2013 victims, of Omega decided to have a golden wreath, and you can see it back of my head. And I have to think about that, what Stylianos Kyriakides did for his country and what I did for the United States and for the sport of running. So it's such a great honor for me to be able to just share a little bit of my story, and I could talk about the Boston Marathon a little bit.
That's great, Meb. Thank you for sharing that. And the series that we've put together and with unique speakers like yourself, it's greatly appreciated. The Socrates series is put together for that, to identify unique speakers, their stories, allowing us to query you or ask hopefully insightful questions that can give certain answers that require otherwise critical thought. But I thank you for that. And the question, one of the first questions I'd like to pose from the group is that when you ran the marathon in Greece, you were in the footsteps of Philippides, right? Or Philippides. And to me, that makes you Greek. All right. And so, your blood flows as a Hellene. How did you feel? I know it's a general question, but the thoughts of the footsteps of a few thousand years prior, that started all the marathon itself. Can you share your thoughts and other than, oh my God, I have to finish this?
No, absolutely. I mean, happy 200th anniversary for the Greek independence. I mean, Philippides, I'm a student of the sport, and when he announced the victory from the Persians and, you know, passed away, it was as a soldier, it means a lot, because that's how the tenacity of the marathon of perseverance is, and to start the marathon. But going through the street, you know, we had the monument where the burials of the soldiers was. You think about that. Absolutely. I mean, you thinking, I remember it was on the left-hand side, and you think about that. Or for me, I did the cross and say, you know, may they rest in their soul. And but we are here in the moment now. You know, you represent them to the best that you can. You know, and you think, you flash back to those memories, and you know, all the Greek is all about the history, and that it has the originals. So you think about that, and the roads are, you know, it was new paved, but at the same time, you hear or sense that, wow, how the distance, how challenging it was, what were they thinking, and were they getting fluid, or all about the work. Personally, me coming from war, having the background Eritrea versus Ethiopia, it was still fresh in my head, because I'm an escapee of that. And to rekindle that memory is important, and understand the freedom that we have. We are free now because of the great heroes that passed to allow us to have the freedom to run and be a sport at it, you know. And but in the races in itself, it was tactical. Tactics was very important for me and for Dina Castor and many of the other teammates. We had a seminar how to tackle the hilly course, you know, and the humidity and the heat. And I remember just, you know, put water here on our shoulder and our head to keep the vessels and the core temperature down as much as we can. And, you know, it's what a wonderful opportunity to compete against the best and the best in the world. And getting to that finish line was important, because no matter what, you know, it's to partake of the Olympics is a great honor. Only a few people get that gold, silver, and bronze. But if you have a chance and an opportunity every 4 years to do that, you're going to be recognized for. And Athens race, winning the silver medal, was when I made a name for myself internationally. I did have the American record in the 10K prior to that, but the notoriety of, and Athens did a great job. I mean, for me to be able, you know, past it after 9/11, but you know, the host, the Greek, did an amazing job to be able to make sure we were welcome and treated right to the Olympics. So, you know, to be able to just come across the finish line and be able to be celebrated. It was not like you finish like 100 meter or 200 meter to wait the results. You have so many times to reflect back on the memories of, for me, especially the childhood of from Eritrea to Athens, where I met my dad. And those are memories that, I mean, I could keep, you know, there's no other words to describe, but just be in the moment, but how grateful you are if life is a fuller circle. So for me, it was very special to be able to win that medal in Athens, Greece, where I met my dad for the first time after 5 years of separation. So those do go through your memory on the streets, in fact.
So Meb,
Tim,
that's quite a dramatic finish. How, I don't know if you can do this, but I've always wanted to ask you, how do you compare that finish with the coming down Boylston Street and crossing the finish line of the Boston Marathon?
You know, to finish at that stadium was huge, and you know, and Boylston Street is amazing. You know, there's so many history in both, and to be able to see, you get inspired. Obviously, you know, the old stadium is just Pythagorean Stadium. There was a challenge, you know, and to be able to just, you know, antique history. And then you hear so much about the Boston Marathon, 125 years. You hear about the heroes, or Stylianos Kyriakides, or for me, Boston Billy, and people are made in those streets of those things, both in Athens and also in Boston. So to have the finish line the way they do, the tunnel vision is incredible, and they're both challenging courses. I mean, you know, I think, you know, Boston's more noticeable, but like up and down. Whereas in Athens, I remember it was from mile 12 to 20, it was gradual uphill consistently. So but the finish is for me are very memorable because you want to be able to just finish strong and you know exactly how much you have left. And they had hundreds of thousands of people there, lined up on the old stadium. And whereas Boston, you have the grandstand and the tunnel. On Hereford, people are just 10 deep, and it's just millions watching. And it was just great honor for me to be able to be victorious in both cities.
Very cool. Meb, so in a marathon, they're all different in their ways. Is there any particular similarities that are related and being tough segments within a marathon? Is it the beginning? Is it the middle? Is it the end? What segment of a marathon is probably the toughest out there that you've experienced?
I think if you do the proper training, the ending is the toughest part. I always say in training, if you do proper training, 90% physical, 10% mental. And on a day of the race, it switches to 90% mental, 10% physical. So now when you do all the visualization, whether you're running the Athens Marathon or whether you're doing the Boston Marathon, when you go on a hill, you're thinking, okay, this is mile 18 of the Athens race, or heartbreak mile 21 of the Boston Marathon. So you put yourself in that position. So when you come to a race day, you get nervous at the beginning, but once you kind of go, everything is kind of left behind. If you have pain, you don't have pain anymore because you're thinking about in the moment every stride, and the camaraderie of people around you is always awesome to uplift you and kind of forget about the pain. You might have aches and pains here when you taper down, but courses are challenging wherever you are. I think it's very comparable to Boston and New York and the Athens. I mean, there was numerous of articles. I think 2:15 was a predicted winner of the Athens Marathon, and Boston Marathon usually is that time before they start running 2:03s or 2:05s. But before that, it was 2:12, 2:15, and then New York is the same thing. They're very unique and challenging in this way. But Boston is, for me, a little bit much more noticeable hills. Even the Athens was gradual, a little bit up climb, and then your body get fatigued after you put in so many miles. So mentally you have to be strong on all those three marathons. Every marathon, but particularly the one that have hills and the downhill, especially the finish.
Well, excellent. Before I continue with the questions, I want to turn it over to Kostas Sideridis. Costa, it looks like Tom Grilkis joined us. And I'd like to welcome Tom, and Costa, hand it over to you for a couple seconds here. And
Costa, thank you. Tom, welcome. Appreciate you joining us. And folks, if I may, just want to quickly put Tom on the spot and just introduce him real quick for those of you that don't know Tom. And Tom, as a matter of fact, I wore this just for you. I got my BAA. No, I did not run it. I watched it, but I did get the jacket here.
It's a much more rational act.
For those of you that don't know Tom, Tom is the executive director of the Boston Athletic Association, and which obviously conducts the Boston Marathon on a yearly basis here, the longest running marathon in the world. He's a longtime member of the Boston Athletic Association. He served the Board of Governors since 1990, and he was the president from 2003 to 2010, where in 2011 he assumed the executive director since then. So many accolades to Tom. And for those of you that have not seen this, Tom, I spent some time looking at your TED Talk earlier this afternoon. And one thing that was really a moment for me to appreciate was during the talk, Tom had said, in Boston, everyone owns the marathon. To which I thought to myself, as Greek Americans, we own the history of it. So it's important to understand our role as Greek Americans. But without further ado, Tom, welcome. And if you would mind saying a few words, we'd love to hear from you, if you don't mind.
Well, thank you. Anyone who interrupts Meb has ruined the meeting for everyone else. I certainly don't want to do that. I apologize for being late. It is here in Boston today, One Boston Day, which is the date of the bombing here 8 years ago now in 2013. And so Mayor Janey and Governor Baker were at the marathon finish line a little while ago, and we were engaged in a modest little ceremony or two with the mayor's request that everyone here do 4 acts of kindness over the course of the day to recognize the importance of the day and the importance of kindness to others. To be around the marathon is an immense privilege for me, around the Boston Marathon. I grew up here, grew up around it. It has been my great privilege to visit Marathon in Greece, where all this got going in 490 BC. We've had many great days in Boston, some sad, one horrible, but that most awful day when we lost 3 precious souls and then 2 more shortly thereafter was followed a year later by one of the best of days, a great day, a day when an American by choice, Meb Keflezighi, who you've been listening to, showed up and won at a relatively advanced age for winning any major marathon in the world. But as Meb won that race with the names of 4 victims written on his shirt, he brought to all of us the spirit of giving, in a way, of providing greatness at a time when it was called for, in the spirit that Mayor Janey sought people to perform acts of kindness here today in Boston. So Meb will forever be among the very most special of an altogether special group of people, Boston Marathon champions. Way back in 1946, when Stylianos Kyriakides carried the hopes of Greece to the finish line as the champion, Meb did much the same for Americans. Somebody who came to escape war-torn Eritrea with his father walking out of there, later sending for the family. Little Meb showing up in Italy, seeing a TV for the first time, wondering how all those little people got in there. He brought a spirit to the Boston Marathon that can never be duplicated. So I urge you to pay careful attention. And thank you for the chance to say something.
Tom, thanks for joining us. I'm going to pivot back to the questions as they're being posed. And Meb, obviously got a bunch of Greeks here. So they want to know, right, comparing the hills of the marathon in Greece to Heartbreak Hill in Massachusetts. What do you think? How do you compare?
Well, Tom, thank you for those great comments. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And I'm always honored to be, besides the BAA and the Boston Marathon and here the Greek Americans, to have me in the presence of tonight. The race in Athens, I was 29 years old, so the hills was probably a little bit more fresher for me, conquerable, versus in Boston when I won. I was 2 weeks shy of my 39th birthday, so a decade later, but they seem a little bit difficult, but I think they're very, very comparable. It's just the Boston is more noticeable because you have 3, the Heartbreak Hill, the Newton Hills, there's segments, whereas in Athens is gradual, but I believe, again, from 12 to 20 are gradual, but climbing nonstop. But, runners from all walks of life, they're always, and the Boston Marathon is the Olympics, they have to have qualifying, but I always tell them, if you can do that, that's wonderful. But also to do the Athens, because they're like, well, if I'm going to international, where should go? I said, well, if you haven't done Athens, you have to do it, because the reason being, you become student of the sport. And then after that, you get selected, whether it's London, other races to go on. But at the same time, for me, it is a great honor to be able to be associated with both marathons, because it was my pure decision, just as it was citizenship, to do a 10K was an option and get down to, be done first, and then you have 2 weeks of vacation. But I really wanted to embrace the marathon in itself and to be able to run the original course, and no guarantees in running, but to be able to win the silver medal was a huge honor for our country. And the Boston Marathon, after I did my first marathon, I'm like, Coach Larson, I'm excited to do another marathon. Let's do Boston Marathon 2003. But, he talked me out of it because of the courses have been so challenged. I'm now trying to qualify the sub 2:12 time for the Olympic, so I can go to Athens to hopefully represent our country.
Great. So as we look at, people who get involved in marathons, right? I think the efforts are the kids, right? And how they can, focus in on running and track and field and whatnot. how do we get kids involved, right? I mean, how do we get them involved with the BAA and the marathon as a whole, and show them how important the event is, and what it not only brings to athletics but to the community as a whole.
I personally, my parents always, education is the key to life. Education can be so many things. We talk about engineering, doctors, or lawyers, teachers, and whatnot. And I think to involve kids is, to get them involved in sports, become part of the Boston Marathon or part of the Athens Marathon. And I think with the BAA and I think also New York does that. But the foundation, I know the Kenyans go to speak to schools. And Tim and I have discussed in the past that how it would be wonderful to be able to go back to schools and talk to the kids, because when you have the Boston Marathon, it's the Olympics every year. I mean, you come the best of the best from around the world to come. And I must tell you, because there was a Brody. Brody is a kid that just did a marathon in San Diego. During the pandemic, my neighbors were in San Diego, and he did 3 times 26.2 miles. Because his mom started. So that's what we need to do to get youth to be able to be involved in this races or education. And on behalf of the Meb Foundation, which I started in 2010, a healthy lifestyle is an education itself that starts at home, but also goes to the schools. And if you educate the schools, they don't have to do a marathon. They can do a mile, just like myself. When I was in 7th grade, that's how it started. You introduce them to the 5K, to the 10K, and then eventually you teach them about the marathons. And trust me, one day they're going to want to do it. It might be, after a while, after college or whatnot, but there's 20, 30,000 people doing the Boston Marathon, the Athens Marathon similarly. And we know the benefit of goal setting, time commitment, perseverance, and dedication, and accountability. And that in itself is a lessons that be taught in the marathon, but also can be taught the kids to be involved in sports. I think, running is looked as a punishment sometimes, yeah, you're late, go run, 2 laps or 3 laps. But when become adults, it becomes a escape way for therapy. It becomes a lifestyle. And we see thousands and thousands of people participating every weekend during races. So I think sometimes the kids gravitate towards sports, and then the parents start walking or start exercising. But fortunately for me, I've been exposed to that, and then hopefully my girls couldn't say, hey, they're into sports, but now one of them, like I said earlier, she wants to do the Boston Marathon and other things. So there's something that can help us, even though I'm retired, it's kind of gravitate me toward those races also.
Now, Meb, you mentioned your foundation, and obviously what Alpha Omega is and what we do. As far as the education side and community side, can you tell us a little bit about the Meb Foundation and what it's all about?
Hats off to Tim for the 26.2 Foundation. It's very similar education, and history repeated in a good way to educate people. But the Meb Foundation is maintaining excellent balance through health, education, and fitness. It's something that, the sport has given me so much. I don't know where I would be if it wasn't for the sport of 7th grade PE class. But with the budget cuts and other situations, people are eliminating extra curriculum. And with that, obesity starts, and not such a good decision for our society, because when we teach kids the fundamentals of importance of dedication, hard work, and commitment that sports teaches you to the Meb Foundation, whether it's providing gears or motivation, that will translate into better academics and better contributors to society. So with the Meb Foundation, I have donated many shoes to Eritrea, and some to even in New Mexico. And and scholarships also is important for the people that work hard. They get up early in the morning and run or work hard to be able to give them a little bit of something. Scholarship for college is important to me.
Yeah, and you brought up Tim, and Tim, if I may, Tim's looking down, but Tim, I see this wonderful visual aid you have behind you. If you can share that with us, the picture behind you on that easel.
Sure.
And let us know what that's all about, and bring it to the forefront a little bit if you could.
Sure. As Tom and Meb will attest, very seldom do you see someone running a marathon, a champion, take off from the first or second step, run to the, really force yourself into the lead, run with the pack, and then run in the lead the rest of the way. That photo behind me is about step 2 after the gun went off to start the race. And Meb did what he said. But one of the things that might be, again, might be fun to ask Meb is, he talks a lot about the marathon, but I'm wondering, was there a point in the Boston run where you even a little glimmer of, well, maybe I need to, maybe I can't finish this thing in the lead? Was there?
Well, before you talk about the Boston Marathon, I don't know where the little echo goes on, but 8 years ago today, a disaster occurred that affected all of us, and we can't get the lives that we lost back. But I remember I was at the finish line 5 minutes before the bombing occurred, and I left because I had an appointment. And Howie, my brother, was the last one to get into the Copley Fairmount. And that afternoon, Bonnie Ford from ESPN asked me, Meb, are you scared to bring your girls to the Boston Marathon? Or are you going to come back? I said, Bonnie, I hope to be healthy enough to win it for the people. I remember telling her that evening. So my goal was set that day to be able to win for the people, to win it for the Boston, to win it for the community of running. But your will, heart's always there. The Boston Strong motivated me. I mean, every time I see the Boston Strong, or I see the B hat, or the Red Sox putting the finish World Series trophy, the finish line, I was getting worked on that day when they did that. I remember telling my massage person, I said, I hope to do that on Patriots Day for the runners. So you have this constant dialogue to be able to do it. And when the crowd came in on April 21st, 2014, having the 4 victims' name on my bib, it's an inspiration. Every time I look down, I'm thinking about them. I'm thinking, give me your energy, give me your soul. We can't have you back, but pray for me, help me out here. You have all this dialogue. And when I got away, I did for good. But at the same time, yes, there was a moment I'm like, I remember, Tim took a lot of photos. Every mile, there's some things where 5K to the left and to the left. I looked to the right. I said, there's somebody chasing me now. He's gonna try to catch me. And I've been leading this for a long time. 3 things came to mind. Save your energy, because I do a lot of visualization. It's gonna be on Boston Street. I gotta have the kick for Boston Street. But in the running, if somebody catch up to you, they have the mental age. So I decided, you know what? I can't have that. That's a stupid plan. Just throw that one out the window, but trying to maintain the gap, trying to extend the gap. And with about 2 miles to go, I remember just holding my hand in that picture that I was going to throw up. I said, this is it. I think it's going to catch me. And then I said, you know what? Swallow it, keep going. And a mile later, with 1 mile to go, I said, if he was feeling good, he would have been next to me or try to outrun me right now, but he must be hurting. I'm willing to hurt a little bit more than he is. And I have no idea who it was, but as you guys, most of you know, the Boston Marathon's point to point. When I make a right on Hereford, I said, sprint as hard as he can, make the gap look bigger, and then hopefully he'll give up. And then come left on Boston, I just crushed myself. I said, God, I know it looks like 600 meters. A lot of races have been made here and a lot of mistakes been made. Don't put your hamstring. Try to use the police. If you speed up, they're going to speed up. So use them. And the crowd was just exhilarating. It was just echoing and amazing electrifying sound. And I just kept going and going. And, there was 36,000 of us that want to do something positive on April 21st. I just was fortunate enough to be able to lead everybody come to the finish line and acknowledge the cross where the bombing happened, and then chant USA, USA coming to the finish line. It's a dream come true. It was a dream that I had for a long, long time, but it came to me 2 weeks shy of my 39th birthday. And a lot of people write you out and things like that. I only had less than 1% chances of winning, but there's a chance. But through your hard work, believing in your team and doing the right thing, and the support that we have gotten from the BAA and others, for me, it was huge to be able to win it for all of us. And with the John Hancock and everybody, it was a thrill of a lifetime. And yes, there was doubts and moments and things like that, but perseverance and then posture, mechanics, and all those things that you displayed might not be important. Other times they become monumental on race day.
I mean, you going through that in the finish line, I just, you just gave me a flashback of that, right? And I'm sure everybody else, and, and the tear, forgive me being a little sentimental on that, I mean, but, true athleticism, the personal best, if you will. It's incredible. Tom, any additional input from you? It's excellent to have all three of you here. We're very excited and to share and whatnot. Are we gonna? I know the virtual one is going off. When do we feel that the physical one, the in-person one, is going to happen?
October 11th on a Monday, with a reduced field size, 20,000 people, but a day when we'll look back 8.5 years, and we'll look back to this day, and words such as Meb just used, Boston Strong, which for me, and I think for many of us, have come to mean that people who live around here will live their lives the way they choose, no matter what anyone does to try to stop them, no matter what challenge may arise. And that's what Meb exemplified on that day in April in 2014, when he lifted a city, a region, and a nation. And we look forward to what the history of this race will be in Patriots days yet to come.
Great. Thank you. I think, if there's no other questions, I want to turn it back to Kostas Sideridis, but before I do, I'd like to ask everybody and to just take a moment of silence and remember the people who were lost on this day back during the bombing. So if we can take that moment of silence, that we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. God bless them.
Ursula, thank you. Meb, if I may, one final question, maybe a couple of last questions. Retirement, right? It's that word that we all dread, that we all will hopefully work towards. What does that mean for a world-class runner? What does it look like? What does it mean? And what are your aspirations going forward?
Well, for me, I'm in Florida and spend a lot of time with my daughters. I'm a soccer dad right now, taking a lot of the soccer practices and take them to school and pick them up from school. And it's been great to be able to work with Stylianos to make that transition a little bit, especially the last 365 days for me, because usually on the weekends I'm traveling, but I'll be able to spend some time with them. And, I released my 26 marathon book that tells all of my 26 collective marathons, anecdote of a snapshot of how success that I have learned through my faith and purpose in life to be able to help me inspire others. And I've been doing a lot of Zoom calls on the internets and awareness, just health and conscious, to be able to be a supporter for the sports, because yes, we are apart in terms of distance, but we still go out every day or every other day, or people when they can, to be able to learn about themselves and anticipation when the next marathons they're going to run in person, because it's a wonderful joy. There's more people walking nowadays. There's more people running nowadays. They just don't have the opportunities to go to city to partake, but they're health conscious, and people are, mentally need that, because we all can use positive thinking. And you see people running, you might not hug them or whatnot, but you give them thumbs up, they encourage you, they inspire you. And so to be an ambassador for the sport of running, I feel blessed, because the sport has done so many things. And a lot of the people that I've met over the years, somehow, some way have contributed to my success. And, to be in touch with them is important to me. And, I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. And going forward, just watch my kids grow, and hopefully we come back in person and be able to, get together with the runners, walkers, and be able to inspire them to be a better lifestyle to live. And I feel honored to be able to be partake of that.
Outstanding. Meb, I know when you mentioned about fleeing your country, I know as Greeks, the majority of us are Orthodox Christians, and sometimes, even though Alpha Omega is a secular organization, we do dab into the religious freedom part of things. And fleeing the country, what role did that play? Was it a motivation, or was more of a demographic, social, economic motivation to leave Eritrea?
to live the Eritrea was a freedom. I mean, the opportunities, not everybody had the opportunity to go to school. And, you know, I'm a Greek, we use the Greek Orthodox for church. And I remember my brothers and sisters who were born in the United States got baptized at the Greek church. And it's important to have faith. I remember my dad just saying, you know, for the over 225 miles that he walked, if it wasn't for faith of God, and wouldn't be able to survive it, you know. And at one point, in fact, he was gun pointed, but the trigger never went off. So it's for him, he says, I know I was meant to not to die with the power of man of that day. And he believes on that. You know, his new book is From 7 to 77 is coming out. It just came out last week, and he can tell all those stories in there. So it's you know, that my parents always say, you know, faith is important, and to be able to just learn from them and get baptized and be able to, you know, being an immigrant, it wasn't always easy going to consistent same church, but we learned through perseverance and having faith where, you know, my mom always says, person thinks it, God finishes it. So if it's in your heart, in your mind, pure or not, God knows it all. So for me, even like, you know, for the Boston Marathon, it was for me to be able to win that race, you know. In Athens, you can say, well, I was young, I won driven, I won hard, but to be 2 weeks shy of my 39th birthday, I know God had that will for me to be able to just won it for many years, and to be able to place it. Not that we want 2013 to happen, but when it was, every eyes was there, and to be able to just know, you know, nobody told me. In fact, you know, sometimes we are very protective of the BAO, John Hancock, to write names on paper with the sponsors, but something told me to write the victims. I wanted to write it big, but I wrote it in a way that it was a Sharpie that was visible. And that's, you know, the spirit talking to you, honor these people, and you're not going to win in the area, but God has planned for you. And to be able to just write that now the night before, and you wake up in the morning, do the best that you can, and to be able to come victorious. And I remember MK, Mary Kate, when she saw that, she put on post, and it went viral. People are saying, and there were Martin Richards' parents that were on vacation, and somebody telling me, turn on the TV, turn on the TV. There's a American in the lead, has the Martin's name on his bib, and you know, they draw that thing and stuff like that. It's just, you never can plan it, but if you do the right thing, and faith has been very instrumental to me. And you know, without God, I wouldn't be where I am, and I feel blessed. You know, Athens was 2004, and New York was 2009, but you know, and Boston was 2014. It's just, you know, the longevity, it was due to God's faith and able to give me the power. And I'm so grateful for the people that give me the chances and opportunities, because I wouldn't be where I am. You know, you got to be in the right time, right places. And I feel fortunate for the people that have a cross to be able to put me in opportunities to be able to show my God-given talent that was discovered in 7th grade.
Meb, outstanding, inspiring to say the least. And, you know, we look at life as a marathon, and we hope that we finish it, and we hope that we finish it in God's time. But let me close by saying a few words here. First of all, let me thank Kostas Stylianos for doing a wonderful job as always. Our Socrates series, as you mentioned, started a few months ago with the intention of having these Q&A type of periods that we can understand and appreciate our speakers, and understand what their passion is, what their motivation is, and to get more behind the scenes of the importance of all this. So on behalf of all of the executive committee and roughly 100 members of the Alpha Omega Council, let me first thank Tim for being here today. Tim, sincerely, we appreciate all that you've done. You're a partner to this organization. We're very excited about this 100 or 99-year lease, about the marathon center there that you're going to be putting together, and we hope that we will play an active role in that. And we wish you continued success, health, and all of that with regards to that. So obviously you'll be keeping us posted along the way. And Tom, sincerely, thank you for joining us. It is an extreme pleasure for you to be with us. And again, what a solemn day to kind of, you know, appreciate, or at least understand. And for the moment of silence, of course, like you said, the 8th year anniversary. And quite frankly, I knew of it, but I didn't know it was the day of. So forgive me for not saying something sooner, but it's very, quite a poignant moment. And to your words, I'll keep on saying those again. In Boston, everyone owns the marathon. That will stay with me as long as I go, and as long as every Greek American understands that, you know, we own the history of it. So it's important that we also have that responsibility going forward. And to Meb, the words tonight, hot, hilly, and humid. That's something else I won't forget as well. Granted, I'll never run it, but I may drive it or maybe even walk part of it. And you have our word. We will translate the back of that medal for you. So we will get the answers for you for that. And it gives me such joy to see the wreath that hangs behind your head there. Not only that you're such a deserving champion in life and in the marathon, but it just exemplifies what we're trying to do as Greek Americans, to just personify what Philippides did so many years ago for the sake of a nation, for the sake of the people, and for the sake of just the whole mantra of marathon. It's a task that many of us will never run. I think a few of us have done it. Peter Lemonius, I know one. I'm not sure if anyone else has run a marathon here, but it is something that is daunting. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Meb, for all that you've done. I wish you and your family success, happiness, health, strength, continued faith in God, and everything else. And with that, if there's any final questions, that probably concludes the formal part of our presentation. But once again, thank you all.